Oh buddy, here we go. More oboes. Fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, this is a style that is no longer produced, but you can find online for very cheap if your size is available. So I apologize for this review of a shoe that hasn't been made in the past 3 years. So the availability is kind of so-so, but for those of you like me with size 14 feet, 13s, maybe the other end of the spectrum, if you're like an 8, you might have some luck in finding these around the internet. So this is the Oboz Sling. It's a flip-flop. I think it was 2010 that they debuted these in the fall. Totally sweet. This is kind of before my knowing of oboes, or at least my understanding of the brand. So from what I've heard from people working in stores and things, they didn't sell very well. Why? My guess is that they just made flip-flops a little too early in their brand age. People, they're looking at flip-flops in the store, they're used to just the Teva mush, something that's super squishy, tricking yourself into thinking that it's super comfortable. Total lack of support. And then you've got the other end of the spectrum that Chaco provides with their flip-flop. Excuse me. And that's going to be very structuring. Some people who fall for the super squishy comfort, needing of that, they will hate Chaco flip-flops, even though indeed Chaco probably provides the most proper support for your foot. Not to mention they're some of the most long-lasting flip-flops. Aside from that, this is not a Chaco review. I didn't even bring my Chaco flips to show you guys. This video is about the Oboz Sling. I was torn between this and the other one that they have called the Dino. And the Dino, I believe, has a buckle on one of the straps. It may also negate a strap. I haven't looked too closely in it. But upon talking with the people at Oboz, they kind of turned me into this one, telling me it's going to hold my foot a little better. And I also was kind of torn on the idea of whether I wanted a buckle to cinch my foot into it. And I came to the conclusion that I want a flip-flop that is as easy to use as possible. Less bells and whistles, the better. And I guess I kind of just went on a whim and trusted them. Really glad I did too, because this is slowly becoming my favorite flip-flop out there. It's not the greatest, but for what flip-flops are made to do, for how I use them, these definitely do a really, really good job. And they're, in my opinion, preferred over the Chaco flip-flops. Now let's talk philosophy here. These shoes, they do have a carbon rubber outsole, so the traction is there. If you need it, the slip resistance is there. I would say equal to that of a hiking shoe. So if you want to go step on dirt, mud, rocks, wet rocks, guess what? This is going to keep you on it. It's a matter of whether your foot is then going to stay on here. That's what makes this a flip-flop and not a shoe. There's no shoe, laces, anything. So the traction's there. I have done a little bit of trail walking, kind of scrambling around, just around camp, and it's very impressive, the traction that these provide. But we'll get there in the outsole. So just, I would say camp shoe, everyday shoe, these things are going to be awesome for. I work retail, concrete floors all day. The EVA foam here is just beautiful for proper cushioning. The support, so-so. So that's the philosophy of use here, just kind of an everyday, just what you would imagine a flip-flop be used for. Potentially you could dive into what a shoe is used for without taking these off your feet. It's just you might kind of notice if your feet are sweaty or something, you might slide along the bottom. The construction of this shoe, flip-flop, excuse me, I'm probably going to call it a shoe, so get used to it. We've got the upper here, which is 3 tubular nylon webbing straps, and if you can tell, they've got a very interesting design. And I was looking at some reviews, and I don't know if people just can't keep their mouths shut if they haven't properly tested a product, or if they're making assumptions, or if I am not encountering any of the problems that people seem to be having. But some people say that this strangles your toe, and yeah, it definitely has the ability to strangle your toe, but it also has the ability to be way bigger than your toe. So what I will say with that is that this is going to be exactly as big as your toe needs it to be. Not any tighter, not any looser. So there you have it. It's not going to cut your toe off. It's not going to make your toe turn purple. I've been walking every day in these things, you know, working 9-hour shifts and things. No problems at all. And you can tell, I mean, maybe you can't in the video, but like, these are pretty well broken into my foot. You can see where my foot would be in these things because that's just the shape that they've acquired so far. The underneath of my foot here, if you can't tell, it's a little bit worn in. It's definitely noticeable to the eye that my ball of my foot has made a noticeable imprint compared to, say, an area that may not be putting as much pressure down here. So I would say we're maybe 50% into these things being totally lusciously broken in. With that being said, I've only had them for maybe a month or two, maybe a month and a half, and this is EVA foam. So I wouldn't expect these to last nearly as long as, say, the Choco flip-flops. We'll get to there in a second. So the upper, great. Strap design, love it. Keep in mind these two straps that are going along your foot. I apologize if I'm on a screen, by the way. The camera angle is kind of hard for me to see the viewfinder. But here, these straps do indeed attach at the same area. So what I've noticed is when your foot's in here, it actually allows these two to hug the side of your big toe. So it really does position your foot nicely in this shoe, flip-flop, whatever you want to call it. Another thing I like about the strap design, not only the look too, it's got a pretty unique look, definitely I would say is a attractive style. Again, it's all opinionated. But what I really enjoy is how far back these things attach in relation to the shoe. So what this is going to provide is maybe a relatively low volume fit, potentially, but also too it's going to stabilize your foot as good as it can. If it were attaching more up here, you would have, you know, the whole rear of your foot not even laterally attached to the shoe. So here I have noticed that even on side to side stability, places where you would need it, this definitely does a pretty good job of holding your foot in there. Yeah, so that's the upper. The midsole, we were touching on it a second ago. You've got EVA foam, and I will warn you guys, in the pictures on the internet and things, these things look thick, and they are kind of thick, but it's EVA foam. They're not going to be overly heavy. It's incredible how much lighter these things are, or at least how much lighter they feel for how cushiony they are compared to Choco flips. On average, if you weigh a size 9 of these and you weigh a size 9 of the Choco flips, these weigh 1 ounce less. And I will say that it is a very noticeable ounce. Pretty much the reason why I wear these instead of the Choco flips is because they're way lighter weight and they provide a softer cushion. With that being said, I have no issues with wearing the Choco flip-flops for a while and, you know, feeling like I need more cushioning. It's just two different philosophies of fit. You've got Choco, polyurethane midsole, very stiff, springy foam that is going to not give over the lifetime of the shoe. It's very, you know, it's supportive, it's weight distributing, it's great. This is an EVA foam, so I like to compare these more to a Croc. Now, keep in mind, they're not at all as squishy as a Croc is, or as lacking in support as a Croc is, but they very much have the same kind of use, in my opinion. I love Crocs. I have since kind of worn out all my pairs of Crocs. I don't feel like going to buy another pair, so this is easily something that has replaced my Crocs 100%. If anything, more than 100%, because I prefer having a more open top. Again, this is just my mileage. You guys might have different opinions, but I'm just giving you all my thoughts here. And this is probably going to turn into one of the longest flip-flop reviews known to man. So get used to it, because they deserve it. Oboz, by the way, if you're sitting here like, who is this brand? They probably suck. I've never heard of them before. Merrill rules. Yeah, guess what? Oboz indeed may be new. They may be growing. And I can also tell you that if there's one group of individuals that know what a human foot needs and that know how the footwear industry can be manipulated to provide comfort to a customer, I would be fairly certain that it's Oboz. They're made up. I'm not going to go into it, huge here. You can check them out on YouTube or check them out, maybe not their website because it sucks at the moment, but just do some research, look at other reviews. I guarantee you they will fit more feet than most brands out there. And that's speaking from my own experience working in footwear retail, outdoor variety, where we sell more Oboz to people than any other brand, simply because we provide all sorts of varieties of choices for them, and we let them decide for themselves, happening to mostly decide towards Oboz. Aside from that, whatever. Good for them. It's mostly about the last and the designing. They seem to do a pretty good job designing shoes. With that being said, these flip-flops were a total flop. No pun intended. And I think it's just because no one really knew who Oboz was. And they don't, I don't know. They see Teva and they see Chaco, and these are huge, reputable names that everybody knows. And then they see this brand that they've never heard of, a flip-flop that's a little more expensive than other ones. Not as much as the Chaco, but they're definitely, twice as expensive as the regular Teva flip-flop, and people just don't understand what this can provide that a Teva flip-flop cannot, which I'm hoping I'm touching upon this whole time. So the midsole, again, EVA. We do have a strip of blue something or other. I'm assuming it's EVA. I haven't exactly asked or done too much research on it, so I'm assuming it's maybe a slightly denser, chunky EVA. If I had to take a wild guess, though, it's the same density as the black, just blue to provide a nice strip of blue to match the webbing up here. Who knows? Not too worried about it. All I do know is that it's highly cushioned and somehow supportive as well. Keep in mind these things look thick. The edges are much thicker than the center where your foot actually stands. That is to provide stability laterally, again, where you don't have the strap. You still want to be able to bank off of something side to side. You don't want to just be sitting on a flat piece of something. So even though from the side they look quite bulky, in the middle where your foot's actually touching, it is indeed a lower profile than it looks. So keep that in mind, whatever that might be worth. I guess getting back to the upper, if you hadn't seen, they do have a sewn-on logo there, and then just an adhered-on area for the information, the sizing, and the made in China, and the item number, and the oboz.com, or obozfootwear.com. So this is coming off, as I've found. I'm not too worried about it, because who should be worried about that? If they don't know their shoe size, then that's their own fault. I hate seeing people walk in going, I don't know, it rubbed off my shoe, I don't know what my size is. It's like, dude, you gotta know about your feet if you're gonna try to buy shoes for them properly. Okay, geez, let me get back on track. EVA foam. You can see that there's a bunch of O's, like the letter O, molded in here. This is to provide a little bit of micro stability, I guess, as what I'm calling it right now. And what that's going to do is basically allow your skin to fall into these little grooves, and even if you're sweaty a little bit or something, it's going to provide that little bit of grip that you can just hang on to the bottom with the help of your body weight. Your skin will dive into those little bits of grooves and, you know, provide some stability for your foot, prevent you from sliding around on top of the shoe. This is also what you'll find on a Chaco flip-flop. They have kind of a diamond pattern. It almost looks like a knurling type feature to the whole upper surface. And what I will say is that they're designed to function the same, but the Chaco flip-flop will indeed function better because it's a stiffer foam. It's polyurethane, not EVA foam like this is. So it's going to be harder, and it's going to penetrate your skin, you know, not to make you bleed or anything, but it's going to push harder against your skin to provide that micro stability. Again, I'm coining that term as we speak. I think it makes kind of sense. If you guys are logical, you'll get what I'm saying. But with this EVA foam, say you were super sweaty for whatever reason walking around on these things, you do have the ability to overpower what these O's, or this little etching, can provide you with in the micro traction. So I will say that this is going to be mostly aesthetics potentially, and then I would imagine over time it's just going to kind of wear away. Your foot's going to grind through most of this EVA and leaving this aesthetically appealing O pattern probably completely negligible. But what are you going to do? It looks way better than if it were blank. Getting to the outsole here. Carbon rubber. I'm pretty sure this is the same rubber that's on the majority of their shoes. If not, it's pretty darn close and you won't notice the difference. I think what the main difference is going to entail is just the design of it. The overall surface area that's touching the ground, I think, is relatively high. So that's going to provide longer life, if anything, and I still think it has substantial traction and slip resistance to it. Again, I've used these stepping on all sorts of junk, climbing up on my rooftop for this past, excuse me. Let me start that over. I used these to climb on top of my roof, off of a ladder that was way too short for my roof, for this past 4th of July to go watch the fireworks, and what do you know, I was totally secured. Whether it was on my rooftop, whether it was clinging to my gutter, stepping on the ladder top, on that little, you know, top step you're not supposed to step on, totally felt secure in these things. That's totally a weird example. I've walked on trails with these. Haven't done any specific hiking because you shouldn't. They're a flip-flop. This is the type of thing that you'd strap to your pack and you'd throw on while you're walking around camp after you've used your hiking shoes to get there. So keep that in mind. However, I mean, if you're at like a summer camp and the most walking on a trail you're going to be doing is on like the most flat, groomed trail, absolutely these things would be awesome to wear, as long as you're okay with maybe getting some dirt and grime here. Geez, we're at 18 minutes. Holy moly. I might start editing stuff out. You never know. I hope you guys are hanging in for the long haul here. I guess I just like talking about shoes. So it's a 3mm deep outsole tread pattern, and that's, you know, kind of middle of the road. You can get deeper soles, but honestly, considering the shape, the overall design of this, I wouldn't anticipate it needing to be deeper. It's a flip-flop. This is plenty of traction, way more so than you'll ever find on most flip-flops. So that's that. The performance of it, I think I've touched on this a couple times, but I do like the tubular webbing as opposed to the non-tubular that Chaco uses, and then most other brands are going to have a non-tubular as well. Teva does both. Lots of their tubular designs are going to be narrower, so maybe half as thick as this webbing is, but tubular, just the same. It's much softer. It tends to not feel as aggressive against your foot. Not that the Chaco's too aggressive, but it's something you kind of got to get used to if you're not already used to having straps holding your foot on a shoe instead of a shoe top. So there's that. The other bit of performance, I think, is the arch support, the anatomically correct design of the footbed. I'm the type of person who rarely wears shoes without an orthotic in them. And I can safely say, and again too, I went to the Choco flip-flops as a person who had never worn flip-flops comfortably hardly ever. I couldn't wear most Teva flip-flops without experiencing pain due to lack of support, other things like that. And I have found, I'm talking maybe 2-3 years back, got into the Choco flip-flops, loved them, totally something I could wear on my feet all the time. I'm assuming due to the amount of support that they provide. These, I would say, are maybe a step down in support just because it's a mushier foam. It's inevitable that even if this does have some type of shape to it, your body weight divided by 2 is definitely going to do some deforming to it. So I don't want to say that these things are outrageously supportive, but I will say that they are way more supportive than most flip-flops. The other thing I like is that if you just go to immediately bend them, what do you know? They're going to bend right where your foot normally bends and not where it doesn't naturally bend. Not that you can't get in here and crank this and get it to bend, but it just is more resistant to it, meaning this whole package is going to behave more like your foot would, and that seems to make a lot of sense for something that's supposed to be protecting your foot and, performing along with your foot. So performance, who knows, we could probably talk for another hour about that, so I'm going to move on to comfort here. I thoroughly enjoy the kind of middle of the road tactic that Oboz has taken with this flip-flop. They didn't, totally make it ridiculously squishy foam so they could make it thinner and provide the same amount of cushioning, which I would say Teva and Crocs, that's their approach, is just super squishy foam to make you think that it's more comfortable than it may really be, or maybe it is. I mean, what is your definition of comfortable? Again, for me, it's providing stability, cushioning, and support, allowing me to do what I need to do. If something's too mushy and too, soft, I do feel like I lack stability lots of times. Like if I'm doing side-to-side motions, if I'm having to move quicker, step on things that, maybe a ladder rung or what have you, something that isn't just a flat ground, you will find that a softer cushion makes you less stable on such a surface. This, while you do have a little bit of that instability sometimes because it is indeed squishy, I find that it's kind of a good balance between a Choco flip-flop that's going to be a little bit thinner, much denser, however, and then the other end of the spectrum, which would be, say, a Teva Mush flip-flop that's $20, nothing but, cookie cutter chunk of really, really soft foam that's gonna cushion and do nothing else but cushion and last not that long because it breaks down over time. So I would put these more, for the comfort rating, I would put them more in the Croc bin, if you would, but they need a bin of their own because they do provide a decent amount of support and they have the carbon rubber outsole. These are all things that Croc can't speak for themselves, as well as the flip-flop upper as opposed to the, just having more EVA as a kind of a moccasin like the Crocs are. So yeah, let's see, how much more can I ramble on about flip-flops? Jeez. The fit, if you haven't watched any of my other videos, I'm a size 14 men's USA foot, and I will tell you that if you go into a store and step on that metal device called the Brannick device that's there to measure your foot, my foot, fully pronated, is at about a 14 and a half. And these things fit pretty much perfectly. Like if I were to make flip-flops for my own foot, if I were to step on a piece of foam and measure it out to cut it out, this is probably exactly how I would have sized it. Now, if I had to compare the sizing of these to the sizing of their shoes, I would say that these run a little small. However, they're a flip-flop, not a hiking shoe. So I think they're sized quite perfectly for that. I do oftentimes kick things. You know, I mean, I'm just to maybe move a box to the side, or you know, whatever the case might be. Opening a door if my hands are full. I do oftentimes, you know, rely on the front of a shoe to push things or, you know, kick whatever. And I have found that it is long enough to where my toes don't ever hit what I'm kicking. That's awesome. The last thing you want is to slam your foot into something and actually have your toe hit it. Forget that. If the shoe can stop it from happening, that's beautiful, and I have found that this does that. Keep in mind, this is a size 14, European 48, Japanese 32, UK 13. And for me, I am definitely a 14 and a half, and probably 49, you know, European. And this still fits beautifully. So they are absolutely assuming that people think their feet are a tiny bit smaller than they actually are. However, they're not overcompensating as much as they are in their regular shoes. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed me talking about this shoe that's barely available for you guys to go and buy. This is blue, kind of blue and gray. I think it came in a black and gray too. If for whatever reason you can't find your size anywhere, call Oboz up and see if they've got any hanging out in their warehouse. That is how I acquired this pair. And yeah, worst case scenario is that you can stay tuned, and once they build a more reputable brand for themselves, not that they're not reputable, it's just that people don't think that they might be reputable because they've never heard of them before. Stay tuned. I am almost certain that you will see more Oboz flip-flops to come. Thanks, guys. Again, geez, 27 minutes later. Oh yeah, this is a good one. Take care.